Hey everybody, it's Mr. Reichel. I wanted to take a little bit of time here to walk you through the assignment that we're going to be working on for a couple of days, trying to answer the question, if we were going to build a new power plant somewhere in the United States, where would we build it and why? So in order to work through this document, we've sectioned it out into three parts, okay? And as we go through and do the research about all these things, it's going to help us with the third part, which is to write up a conclusion, kind of answering that main essential question and including some of our research along the way. So, to start off with, we're going to be referring several times to this website, which is linked here on the document and also linked on the Canvas page. And it's a really, really well laid out and very informational website. It looks like this, and it comes from the Washington Post newspaper. And it says, mapping how the United States generates its electricity. So we've been studying so far about what kilowatts are and what kilowatt hours are and how much different appliances cost to run and how much electricity we need overall. So what this map does of the United States here, you can see all these colored dots in different sizes. Starting up here at the top, each dot represents in megawatts. So megawatts is 1,000 watts, or a million watts, or 1,000 kilowatts, right? So this would be 5 million kilowatts at this size circle. So the size circles represent the capacity that power plant generates. Okay, so looking around here, you can see some of the biggest generating power plants. There's one of the biggest up here in Washington State. There are a few throughout the Rocky Mountains here. There's some big ones right along kind of the Ohio River Valley here. A couple of them kind of embedded along the eastern coast, Florida, and down through Texas. Looks like Arizona also has a fairly large one there. So different sizes indicate how much they generate or make, how much electricity they make. The different colors tell you what fuel source is used to generate that electricity. So orange being natural gas, you can see orange is one of the most common sources of energy in the United States. Coal in this gray color is also fairly common, although not so much out on the coasts, right? You notice a little bit in Florida, a little bit South Carolina, maybe some small ones up here through New England, but in large part, again, kind of through that Ohio River Valley, a little bit through the Midwest here and into the Rocky Mountain areas. Nuclear is shown in this kind of pinkish purple color, and there are several nuclear power plants throughout the United States. Also notice, though, that most of those are quite large, right? Nuclear is a form of energy that produces quite a large amount. Hydroelectric, meaning water controlled at a dam and then run through turbines as it passes through. Two things for that, right? You've got to have a water source, a river, and there's got to be some kind of change in elevation. So that usually means mountains, right? They don't have to be giant mountains, but lots of potential up here in Washington State for hydroelectric, down through kind of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Out here, you see a bit through the Appalachian Mountains, and then some of the kind of Adirondacks and into the green hills of Vermont and New Hampshire, etc. So that's hydroelectric. You can also see then oil, wind, and solar, and several of them are very small dots. Lots of wind through Kansas and Texas, quite a bit through southern Minnesota and northern Iowa, and then into the Chicago and Indiana area there as well. So you look at this map and find lots of information, probably generates lots of questions like, how come Alaska has all these small red dots? Why are they oil? And look at Hawaii, like, why do they generate most of their energy on that island, not the big island in Maui where several people live? Lots of questions, okay? Why is Wyoming almost only coal? Why is Arizona almost only natural gas, etc.? So this map, I think, is really informative. Now, the other part of this map that is very this little graph, I guess, kind of shows the share of U.S. electricity by generation. So notice that in 2001, coal was up somewhere near 50% of our total source of energy. That's now dropped somewhere down to, it looks like close to 30 or maybe 25, something like that. Nuclear has remained pretty steady. We haven't built new nuclear power plants in the last 15 or so years. Wind is rising up a bit there. Solar has remained a little bit steady, etc. So this little graph is interesting, but this graph is even more interesting, and this is interactive. So what it shows is per state, how do states generate their electricity? By using what source? All right. So you can see natural gas is highlighted here, and it sorts out from highest to lowest states and their percentage generated by natural gas. So looking here, let's see, Minnesota. Here's Minnesota right here. Okay. So if you hover over it or click on it on your iPad, natural gas power plants make up about 15% of electricity generation in Minnesota. Okay. Versus Rhode Island at 96, Delaware 89, Mississippi at 80, Nevada 73, so on and so forth. Coming back to Minnesota, though, here, notice so we've got 15 or so percent from natural gas. And then the bottom of the graph shows the other sources. So it totals up to 100%, but it's spread out through these different colors. Now, we make about 39% from coal, about 23% from nuclear, 18% for wind, so on and so forth. So if we were to separate this by coal, we said we're about 39% by coal. It shifts the graph to show you that, all right, so Minnesota is in the top half of states that generate by coal. West Virginia, look at this, 94% from coal. They've got 2 and 1 and 0% from other sources. We can shift it again because we also have nuclear power here in Minnesota. We're in the top half again, about 23%. Let's do wind because wind is interesting. Like we were looking on the map there, Iowa, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, the Great Plains areas of the United States, the flat land, right? It has a lot of potential for generating wind. And here's Minnesota. We're sixth in the United States in terms of generation by wind power. Interesting. Now, some of the things we're going to be asking you to look at and think about on this graph are related to balance, the balance of types of energy, right? We saw some types or some states that were very unbalanced, meaning they rely mostly on one source. Okay, and we saw some states that were, there again are some that are kind of unbalanced. But let's look at a state like, I don't know, New Hampshire here has at least 4 or 5 different colors making up their types of energy. Where's another decent one? Here, New York, 4 or 5 different colors. Maine, 4 or 5, even Alaska. So when we talk about balance, we're thinking about the ability for a state to have several different sources of power so that they are not overly dependent on any one source. And then finally, if you just scan down here on the rest of the website, it's going to show you just with all the other colors removed where the power plants are for each different source. And again, this is kind of interesting. You can see some patterns, right? You almost see like some lines or trends that kind of run through different areas of the United States. We were talking about West Virginia right in here. They're 96% coal. Nuclear, notice that there are, several states with 0 nuclear. Hydroelectric, wind, solar, etc. Right? So you can take a look at those too. It's nice to have kind of the noise filtered out. But we're going to use this site several times, and I wanted to just give you a run through on what to look for and what to think about as you use it.